Well, new season, new changes, and a new tier list. Blizzard has dropped a lot of changes on us, some to characters which are very much community favorites and have seen a lot of interesting takes on Twitter, and also some characters that have been very underutilized since the beginning of Overwatch 2 like Wrecking Ball. And I think that we have a very interesting season ahead of us, so without further ado, let's go ahead and start breaking down each individual character's power level moving into Season 3. We're pleased to announce today's video sponsor, HelloFresh. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit for a reason. It is easy, customizable, and it is super affordable. You can pre-portion and optimize your meals just the way you like them and have them delivered at your doorstep. It's cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% cheaper than takeout. Guys, if you want to be on the top of your game and get better at Overwatch, then you need to take care of your body. HelloFresh ingredients travel from the farm to you in less than a week, and they've got amazing, absolutely delicious seasonal recipes that you can choose from. So do yourself a solid and try HelloFresh today. Go ahead and click our link down below to get a special limited discount and free shipping. Going into the supports first, we're starting us off at the D tier with Brigitte. Now, Brig did get some minor buffs this patch. They gave her a little bit of burst healing on her armor packs, but I still don't think she's that good. I mean, a little bit of burst healing, 25, is nothing compared to other characters in the support category right now. So she is very much at the D tier due to her lack of utility and lack of healing output. We're actually going to move past the C tier and right into the B tier where we have Zenyatta. Zen is really important against the current meta tanks due to Discord Orb, but also he got a slight buff in ammo count, which no one was really asking for, but I mean, you know, you gotta take these things into account. Zen is, however, gonna struggle against the influx of Wrecking Balls, so I'm only leaving him at B because he's very powerful, but also is very vulnerable. Next in the B tier, we have Moira. And whereas Zen is very powerful but very vulnerable, I feel like Moira is much less powerful but also much less vulnerable. Her heal and damage output is okay for her support, but really her self-sustain is very important, and as we're moving into a more dive-oriented meta by the look of things, that is going to be a very key element in her kit. Moving on up into the A tier, we have our next support, which is going to be Baptiste. Bap has a surprisingly high damage output right now, and Immortality Field is still just as strong as it's ever been. He has plenty of utility to make him potent pick in this meta, but he's not quite as good as the characters we have up ahead of him, so he's just going to sit right here at the A tier. Our next A tier character is going to be Lucio. Speed boost is pretty much always going to be pretty powerful in Overwatch, and with Orisa being the most likely meta tank, and if not her, then Ramattra, we definitely have a very significant boost in Lucio's importance. But the two top supports right now I think are just so powerful that Lucio kind of just sits in the A tier regardless of his utility. And our final A tier support is going to be Ana. Ana got a very minor nerf this past patch with her biotic grenade effect going from 4 seconds to 3.5 seconds, but I don't think that she's really shifted that much in power as a result of it. She's really good, has a lot of fantastic utility and a great ultimate, but she's just not broken like the two supports we're about to go into next. Moving on up into the S tier, we have our first broken support, and that is going to be Mercy. I can already feel the hate mail coming in, but I'm pretty sure this patch is actually going to make Mercy even better. Her movement got hit pretty hard, but she's gotten way better at being a pocket healer now because when her team is critical, she gets a 50% healing boost. This means she doesn't have to spend as much time away from pocketing a DPS to go and heal a tank who is critical. She can kind of fly over, get her burst heals in, and then fly back. And her damage boost enabling a lot of the best interactions in the game is still why she stays in the meta for me. Our final support and the other broken support in the game is going to be Kiriko, who just has a wide array of utility that really no one character should have all of. She has tons of healing, tons of utility, tons of survivability, lots of burst damage. She has everything really, and she is a fantastic support. Still definitely a meta pick. And kicking things off for the tank role, we're actually going to get started in the C tier this time, not the D tier, and moving on up is Doomfist. This might be a bit surprising since Doomfist didn't receive any direct buffs, so how has he moved up a tier? And I think that simply put, we are going to see much more dive comps, we're going to see more Wrecking Ball getting played, see more Monkey and Diva getting played, and as a result of that, since we're moving away from the slow, very CC driven, very powerful tanks, Doomfist can actually play in that playstyle much better. Yeah, I think I'd still rather have a Wrecking Ball diving than a Doomfist, but if we're going to be running dive, if we're going to be running more Tracer and Soldier stuff, then we might as well have a Doomfist instead of, you know, a hog. That being said, I still don't think he's necessarily great. I just think that as we move more and more towards dive tanks, he gets better and better. Next up in our C tier, we have Zarya. Zarya really just doesn't have anything that impresses me about her right now. She doesn't really fit the meta too well, and she doesn't really hold her own like the other tanks do, in my opinion. She's still okay and can do a lot of work in close range maps, but I'd rather just have an Orisa, to be honest with you, so Zarya is going to stay here at the C tier. And now moving up into the B tier, we have a community favorite, Reinhardt. Ryan received a lot of interesting buffs this patch, and I think that it's great that we are looking to give him more power, but I don't think it's actually moved him all that much. He's still very weak against Ramattra and Orisa, who are really strong tanks at the moment, so he's going to be kind of stuck at this B tier since they are just too good against him. Our next B tier hero is going to be Monkey, and he got a little bit of a nerf, 50 less health on his bubble, but I don't think it really changes him all that much. He's still a good diving tank, maybe not the best in the game, but still a good solid pick if you are needing to get in. Next on our B tier is going to be Junker Queen. Now, she's a pretty interesting tank because there are definitely games where she takes over and just runs the show, but in my opinion, she's kind of right in the middle of all the important pieces to a character. She's like a jack of all trades, master of none, in my opinion. She's got okay pick potential, okay damage output, okay ultimate. Like, she's just really decent all across the board, so not very much an issue as far as having them on my team. As long as the player is good, the character will be good. I still definitely think there are better options though, which is why I leave her here at the B tier. Moving up in the tier list as well is going to be Roadhog up to the B tier right next to Junker Queen. And I used to have Roadhog at the C tier, but after seeing what some people are doing with him, I definitely think he's still a solid tank. He's not anywhere near his heyday, but he's still pretty decent. He's able to get one shots on a lot of different characters. He's able to put out decent damage output with his extra shot, but he just isn't that good when compared to the tanks above him. He did also get a buff this patch, so that's good, and I think he's getting a rework later on, so we'll just have to wait and see what that looks like when it comes. So now we are moving into our A tier for tank, and we are going to start with Wrecking Ball. Ball has received a lot of different buffs this patch, seeing as he has not been used all that much for all of Overwatch 2's history. It's really a good thing to see him getting some buffs to help him compensate against the better tanks right now. The summarized version of what he got is a much faster ultimate arming rate, so his mines are ready to explode way quicker. He got a reduction in the cooldown on his pile driver, and now some of his health is self-regenning, so that's good. All in all, I think that him, Tracer, and Soldier are going to run this meta, and I really do see him as being an A, maybe even an S tier pick. Next in our tank line is going to be D.Va, and D.Va is actually going to play a pretty important role because if we do see more Tracer and Wrecking Ball comps, a D.Va can actually sustain her backline through that, especially since she has more defense matrix in Overwatch 2, and she's a very capable diver with high damage output on her own, so I think we're going to see a lot more D.Va this meta as well. Our final A tier tank is going to be Sigma, who really does have a powerful niche on the sniper heavy maps like Circuit Royale and Junkertown. Even outside of that niche, he's a solid tank in general, so you can definitely run him and carry with him, but he's just not as good as the ones above him, so I'm leaving him here at the A tier. And moving on up into the S tier for tank, we start off with Ramattra. Ramattra got a tiny nerf this patch. His ultimate now no longer has the capacity to have infinite duration. It now will last up to 20 seconds, and instead of the timer getting paused, it is now just slowed down significantly, so definitely a noticeable nerf, but not enough to take away from all of the other utility that he has. He's still very powerful and is still very meta. Our final tank in the S tier is going to be Orisa, who did get a nerf. Her damage fall off buff has been reverted. It is now back to 15 meters before you start feeling the damage drop off, but all of her utility really will make up for it, and you don't even really notice it because you can get so close and have so little that's actually a threat to you that it won't really matter. She's really solid right now, can be ran on pretty much any map with good effect, and she just has a ton of utility and is impossible to kill. She's very, very good, and I think right now she is still the tank to go to. S tier for sure. Okay, and now we move right into the DPS role, and starting us off in the C tier, we have Sombra. Now, previously I had her at the D tier because her win rate was atrocious and she didn't really do much of anything, but honestly she got a buff and I don't think it'll be enough, but I at least think she's better. So she's at least moved up to the C tier, but I think she still needs more in her kit. She needs more power to her, and I don't think it's going to really change all that much, especially with the high damage meta that we have right now. Next up, we have Reaper, and a lot of people are saying, how can you put Reaper at C tier? He's so fantastic, but I really just don't see him doing all that well against the best tanks at the moment. And I know there were a lot of comments saying, well, he's not about killing tanks anymore. He's about killing the backline now. But honestly, why not just play Widow or Sojourn or Tracer in that case? Either Widow or Sojourn can do it from their own backline and in their own safety, or power, Tracer has way more self-sustain, she's way faster, has way more mobility, and you can do even more than Reaper can against the backline. All this to say, I don't think that Reaper has that much of a niche to him right now. He's just not good enough against the tanks at the moment. Maybe if he gets a buff against characters that have damage resistance, but for now, he's stuck at the C tier in my opinion. Next up in the C tier, we have Symmetra, and I don't think that she's bad or needs buffs. I just think that the two tanks that are meta right now are way too much for Sim to handle, because she kind of does need to play close in order to get a lot of her value. Orisa and Ramatra really can bully anyone that's a DPS that's close range, and she kind of falls into the same tier as Reaper just because even though she's really powerful, close range doesn't really come easily to her at the moment. Okay, moving on up into the B tier, we start things off with Mei, and you might be wondering, well, if close range is difficult for Reaper and Sim, why does Mei get a spot at the B tier instead of the C tier? And it is simply because Ice Wall is great for separating the tank from their heals, which makes them significantly weaker. Mei has a lot of value to her right now, and she's getting more and more as we continue onward, but I really don't think that she deserves a spot much higher than B tier, because there's 9 out of 10 times a character that could have done what you did as Mei, just better and easier. And as we get into the more mobile teams and we have Wrecking Ball metas and things like that, Mei is going to actually get worse. So, you know, we just gotta wait and see where she is. But for now, I think she's going to be a solid B tier pick. Next in our B tier, we're going to have Cassidy, who got some really big buffs that people are kind of sleeping on at the moment. For starters, he got a range buff on his damage drop-off, so now he can fire 25% further out and still do max damage. And his roll is no longer blocked by enemy player collision, so if a tank drops in behind you and is trying to zap you like a monkey or something, you can just roll right through him and get out, which is really important for Cassidy. It essentially means that you can actually push and take more and more aggressive angles and not get stuck out as easily as before. I still don't really think he's much better than any other DPS in this tier, which is why I have him here, but he can still get a lot of value right now. And next in the B tier, we have Bastion, and the only reason why I have dropped Bastion in tier is because Soldier is just significantly better with the buff that he got, and when Soldier's really good, Bastion kind of falls off. They perform essentially the same job, just with different ways of doing it, and if Soldier is just outright better, then he's just outright better. But we'll come back to Soldier in a minute. For now, I have Bastion at the B tier just because there are better options above him. He can still get value, it's just not worth it. Our next character in the B tier is going to be Torbjorn. He got a little bit of a nerf with his turret health, but I think that he's still really good all around. I do think that there are better, more consistent value options out there, which is why I have him at the B tier, but he's still very solid. Next in our B tier is going to be Genji, and I know I'm going to get contention for this, but as we get more and more mobile and the DPS has become more and more grounded, especially between Soldier and Ashe, he's not fantastic and he's not bad either, so he fits right at the B tier. Our last B tier character is going to be Pharah, and I think that she's really good at putting out consistent damage, but there's a lot of meta hit scans right now, and she just doesn't feel like she can do as much as her counterpart, and we're going to get into that in just a second. But for now, I'm leaving her at the B tier. She's still very solid all around. Very often you can carry on Pharah, so she maybe deserves a spot in the A tier, but for me, there's a better option there, so I'm leaving her here. And speaking of that better option, we go into the A tier, starting us off with Echo. Tons of verticality, all the spam potential of Pharah. However, she also has a lot of burst damage with her sticky bombs and plenty of cleanup and finishing potential with her laser, which really just makes her a cut above Pharah. I also think her ultimate is better as well. There are a few better DPSs than her, but I'm definitely going to have her at the A tier because you can absolutely destroy on Echo. Next up in the A tier, we have Widowmaker, who received a 25 HP nerf, and all the widows on Twitter are telling you this is the end of the world and that the character is dead, but really she's still just as strong as before. If you are as good as your opponent 9 out of 10 times on Widowmaker, you're going to get the kill because you have the unlimited range one-shot rifle. I think as Widow mains get better about paying attention to their health, they're going to end up just dominating the same way they were before, but I'm at least going to drop her from the S tier to the A tier because you can duel her on other characters at least a little more effectively now. Next up, we have a hero that I'm particularly excited for being in the A tier, and that is Soldier. Soldier received a massive buff on his recoil. It's overall been reduced by 12%, and the shots it takes to get up to your max recoil has also been increased from 4 to 6. This means he has increased laser beam potential. You're going to hit more shots on average because there's that reduction in recoil, and he's going to do a lot more damage as a result of that. I think especially with Tracer and Ball meta coming up, we might see a lot more Soldier played as well, and I'm really hyped to see that happen. Our next A tier character is going to be Ashe. She hasn't really moved all that much. She's still fantastic with all of her utility, has lots of vertical mobility, and she has Bob, which is one of the best ultimates in the game right now. Her burst damage as well is very powerful and leaves her right at the A tier. Our final A tier pick is going to be Hanzo. Plenty of mobility, lots of burst damage with his storm arrows and his headshots, and plenty of one-shot potential, so he's definitely a solid character right now. I'm leaving him at the A tier. Moving on up into our S tier for DPS, we have, unsurprisingly, Sojourn. I still think that Soj is one of the best DPSs in the game, if not the best. Her one-shot potential, her damage output, I mean, she just has everything. She's one of the more problematic characters in the game right now, and with Mercy still being meta, still being strong, I don't see her really going anywhere for now, so she's definitely an S tier pick. The next S tier DPS is going to be Junkrat, and he got a little bit of a nerf this past patch, going from 120 on a concussion mine to 100, but it's still a one-shot on 200 HP target, so not that big of a deal. He still does tons of damage, has tons of range on his explosives, the hitbox is huge, and he's just a fantastic spam character right now. And finally, our final S tier DPS is going to be Tracer. She was already played quite a bit, but I think that now she's going to be played even more as we get more ball players going in. Tracers have historically worked very well with Wrecking Ball because both of them can set up behind the enemy with ease due to their really high mobility and self-sustainability, and the pile drive clip combo is just as powerful as ever, really strong for taking out supports because they move up in a predictable pattern so that Tracer can hit all of her shots. So definitely an S tier pick, and we're probably going to see more ball Tracer going into this season. And that's going to be it for this tier list, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more educational and news content, and I will see you all again very soon. Take care and peace.